Hi guys. Today we're going to learn our last linear equation, which is called standard form. So far we have learned two linear equations, slope-intercept and point-slope. We have also learned a slope formula, but that's not a linear equation. That's just a way to calculate slope. Standard form will be similar to our point-slope and slope-intercept forms, in that it will be an equation that contains the letters y and x and some other numbers. Before we can write something in standard form, we have to know what standard form looks like. Standard form looks like this. AX plus BY equals C. In this equation, just like our other equations that we've done in this chapter, the letter X and the letter Y are going to stay letters. So this will stay a letter and this will stay a letter. So we're not going to plug anything into those two letters. And then the A, the B, and the C will be replaced with numbers. Unlike our other equations, the A, the B, and the C do not have any special meaning. They're literally just the first three letters of the alphabet. That means that to write something in standard form, we cannot just take numbers and throw them in for A, B, and C and say, look, I did it. Standard form will always require work to create it. If you're just plugging numbers in and moving on, you are not doing it correctly. There's also a couple rules that we need to follow for standard form, and so let's talk about those right now. When you have an equation in standard form, all of the numbers, the A, the B, and the C, must be integers. Now, an integer means it's a whole number. It can't be a fraction and it can't be a decimal. So if you're writing something in standard form and you have a fraction in your answer, you're not done with the problem and you'll need to do some more work. Same thing with decimals. The other rule about standard form is that the first number, the number that's in front of the x, the number represented by the letter A, has to be a positive number. So again, when you're writing something in standard form, first of all, you have to make sure it's in the right order. So it should go x, y, number. That is a very specific order. And you have to make sure that whatever number is in front of your x is a positive number. Now, the number in front of the y can be negative or can be subtracted, and that's okay. And the number after the equal sign can be negative, and that's fine. We don't care about those. It's really just the first one that we're worried about. These are the two rules about standard form that we have to follow. Today's video will teach you how to write something in standard form given a point and a slope. So here is our first example. Now, this looks very similar to problems that we've done earlier, where I've given a point and a slope. The only difference today is the directions. So it's really important that you're reading the directions when you're doing these questions. Since this one says to write an equation in standard form, I know that my final answer needs to be AX plus BY equals C. So I want to make sure that my final answer looks like this. When we're starting these equations, we're going to start them the same way that we started our slope-intercept and our point-slope equations, with the modified slope formula. Here's our slope formula. I've modified it by taking away the little 2's underneath the y and the x so that those can stay letters. Similar to what we've been doing for the past week now, I'm going to plug my ordered pair, my x1 and my y1, into the fraction, and I'll be taking my slope and putting it on the other side of the equal sign. I will be writing my slope as a fraction, and I will be attaching the negative sign to the top number. So my initial equation looks like this. Every equation this chapter can be started in the modified slope formula. Point-slope form can, slope-intercept, and now standard. Once you have it set up correctly, then you're going to cross multiply, much like we did for slope-intercept form. So I'm going to cross multiply. Also, like we did in slope-intercept form, I'm going to write my y first and my x second. So the 1 is going to multiply with the y minus 7, and then the x plus 1 will multiply with the negative 5. Next, we distribute. And actually, again, very similar to what we were doing with our slope-intercept form, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the number, the constant that's being added or subtracted with the y, and I'm going to move it to the other side. So in this particular question, I'm going to be adding 7 to both sides. Now, don't be tricked. This equation is in slope-intercept form, which is not what we're looking for. So if this was earlier in the week when we were doing slope-intercept form, you'd say, hey, I'm done, this is it. But today we want standard form. So you've got to do at least one more step. If we look back up at the top of the screen for standard form has the x and the y both on the left-hand side of the equal sign. And then the constant, the number without a variable, is on the right-hand side. So right now in our equation, I've got the y in the right spot, and I've got my constant in the right spot. The only thing that's not in the right spot is the letter x. So my next step is I'm going to have to move my x to the other side. So I'm going to add x, and I'm going to add the x. When you're moving the x to the other side, the order does matter. So if we look back at the top, the x has to be written first. The y has to be written second. So I will be putting it in that order. So I'll put my positive 5x first, my positive y second, and then my 2 stays on the other side of the equal sign. Now at this point in time, I am done with this problem, but we should double check and make sure that we followed all of the rules. So first of all, we have to make sure that everything is in the right order. So it goes x, y, number, and we did a good job with that. Next, we have to make sure that there are no fractions or decimals in our answer. And there aren't. There's all whole numbers. If you use this method of doing the modified slope formula, you will never have fractions or decimals, so you won't even have to worry about that. The last thing we have to check for is we have to make sure that the first number is positive. And since I was able to add the 5x to the other side, I was able to get a positive 5 in front of the x. And so I feel pretty confident that this is the right answer. Let's try one more together before you start tonight's homework. Again, I will be using the modified slope formula to start this question. From here, we will be cross multiplying. Next, we distribute. Next, we're going to move our constant away from the letter y. So I'm choosing the -6 that's on the side with the letter y, and I'm going to add that to the other side. Now in this scenario, I happen to have a -6 on both sides, and so they're both going to cancel out and they'll both go away. Next, and again, it's helpful to write down what standard form looks like. I would, if while you're doing your homework tonight, I would write down what standard form looks like at the top of your paper that you're doing your homework on. So either at the top of the worksheet or at the top of the line paper where you're working. So this is what I'm going for, right? I want ax plus by equals c. So my next step is to move the x to the other side. So I'm going to subtract the x. Now, I have to write the x first, and I subtracted the x. So I'm going to need to write a negative x in the front of the problem. The 3y is positive, so I'm going to keep a positive sign in front of that. So make sure that you keep your symbols with the correct letters. So it's going to be a negative x and a plus 3y. On the right-hand side of the problem, everything is canceled out, leaving us with nothing. Now, we can't write nothing. We do have to have something on the other side of the equal sign. And so we write the number that means nothing, which is the number 0. Okay, so again, I put my negative x first. I put my positive 3y second because that's the order it has to be in for standard form. And I do need a number on the other side, and in this scenario, my number is 0. Okay. Now, I didn't put a purple box around this one because I'm not done with this problem. So we're going to double check all of our things about standard form. It's in the right order. It goes x, y, number. I don't have any fractions or decimals, so we're good on that front. The one thing that's not correct is I'm not allowed to have a negative sign at the beginning of the problem. So I will need to get rid of that negative sign. You can get rid of a negative sign by multiplying the entire equation by just a -1. All you want to do is change the sign. You just multiply by a -1. It doesn't matter what the number was. If you multiply by -1, what that will do is it will change every single sign in the question. So it'll change it from a -x to a positive x, from a plus 3y to a minus 3y. And if it was any other number, it would change the number on the other side of the equal sign to the opposite sign. Now, 0, we can't really write a -0, so the 0 is going to stay the same. But normally what would happen is we would distribute this -1 to all 3 spots. And that's how you can get rid of a negative if it's at the beginning of the problem. And this is my final answer. This concludes today's notes.